Could the Browns trade for Jamar Chase? When I first saw this, I initially disregarded it as impossible. I mean, AFC North trade not happening for a player of this caliber. But after the Browns being leaked as one of the finalists for Brandon Ayuk, I do think it's a little bit of a learning lesson that if a star player is available for a trade, Andrew Berry is going to do some homework on it. So I figured we should at least have the discussion of the possibility of the Browns maybe pursuing Jamar Chase, as far-fetched as it might seem. Now, let's give some background information as to what's going on with Chase and the Bengals. So, Bleacher Report suggested the Browns as a trade candidate for Chase because he has been holding out/in. Sometimes he's at practice standing to the side. Other times he's not there, and Bengals head coach Zach Taylor does not give an explanation as to where Chase is. If it's excused or unexcused, he avoids the topic altogether. So there is a hold in/out going with Jamar Chase and the Bengals, and it's kind of flown under the radar a little bit because I feel like Brandon Ayuk and CeeDee Lamb have just been a little bit more public, plus 49ers, Cowboys, Bengals. Two out of those three teams are major market teams that just garnish a little bit more attention than the Cincinnati Bengals. So I feel like Chase has not been in the news as much. It's also worth noting that Chase has 2 years left on his rookie contract. Whereas Lamb and Ayuk are going into their fifth-year option, Chase has this year on his 4-year rookie contract, and then $21+ million awaiting him next year on his already exercised fifth-year option. So that, I feel like, plays a factor into a little bit more patience for the Bengals to get something done, since he has 2 years remaining on his deal compared to one like Ayuk and Lamb. Now, Chad Ochocinco recently talked about Jamar Chase's holdout, and whether or not Jamar Chase is going to play when the season begins if he does not have a new contract in hand. Here's what Ochocinco said. No, absolutely not. He is not touching the field. I don't think Mike would do that, and I don't think that Joe Burrow would allow Mike to do that. You understand how important Jamar Chase is to the success of Bengals, especially if we're talking about getting back to the Super Bowl. So I've got Ochocinco, who I don't think should speak for Jamar Chase 100%, but he's putting out this idea that if something is not done in the next 2.5 weeks, we might not see Jamar Chase play week 1. Now, I'd be surprised if it got to that stage, but we haven't seen Jamar Chase practice at training camp or in a preseason game yet, so we're getting towards that stage. Now, if Jamar Chase is looking for a new contract, here's a frame of reference for, which he is looking for a new contract, what that could look like. Justin Jefferson just got the highest contract in NFL history for a non-quarterback, making $35 million a season. A.J. Brown at 2 is probably what Jamar Chase's starting point is. Now, the reason why I think the Bengals have not ponied up money yet is because they are not very rich, and I'll expand on that in a moment. But I also think this quote from Adam Schefter on Jamar Chase is worth reading. He said, the Jamar Chase situation is a little bit more complicated than others because he has more time on his deal. We don't know exactly what he's thinking, but I'm going to assume that he's not real happy with the way things are going. I'm pretty sure that ultimately this will get resolved and the Bengals are going to keep Jamar Chase because that's kind of the reason why they're letting T. Higgins play out the play on his franchise tag, because the Bengals can't afford Burrow, Chase, and Higgins. But the reason why I think the Bengals have not gotten a deal done yet, because the longer they wait, like if Brandon Ayuk and CeeDee Lamb get something done tomorrow, Jamar Chase is going to ask for more than what they just got. So why are the Bengals not rushing to get something done before Lamb and Ayuk? I don't think the Bengals have the cash for it. Like, Jamar Chase is going to want somewhere in the range of $70 to $80 million guaranteed. When you guarantee a contract of that magnitude, you have to set aside a certain amount of cash in a 12, 15-month span so that just in case the owner went under and went bankrupt, there is still the guaranteed money in the escrow account for Jamar Chase. The Bengals are not one of the richer owners in the NFL. They still have their players walk across the street to get to practice. So my suspicion is they may simply not have enough cash to set aside in a short amount of time for Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and everyone else on their books, which is why they're trying to space it out a little bit and have Jamar Chase get his deal done next year. Now the question becomes, will Jamar Chase wait until next year? We don't know. And that's what we're going to find out over the next couple of weeks. But if the Bengals are concerned that they may not get something done and that he's going to sit out, that's where a trade could be entertained or at least listened to. Now, we all know at this point how great Jamar Chase is, right? Even when he missed some time in 2022, he had over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. His rookie season, by far the best of his very young career. All 17 games, 1,400 yards, 13 touchdowns. And then last year, with Joe Burrow gone for about half of the year, give or take, he still had 1,200 yards and 7 TDs. So I don't think we need to argue about whether or not Jamar Chase is qualified. Like, he's a top 10 wide receiver. There's no doubt about it. Now, you can argue, do you want that guy on your team if you're the Cleveland Browns after some of his comments? I'm sure a big fat check from the Haslams and Andrew Berry will make him think differently about the city of Cleveland, but you can take up that own argument with yourself in your group chat with your Browns fans. But look at Jamar Chase's stats over the last 3 years since entering the NFL. He is 7th in yards per game, only behind CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams. If you want to include Puka Nacua, he played 17 games, but if you wanted to raise the minimum to 20 or 30 games played, he would be all the way at 6. And you can't really blame him for being that far down when the guys above him are Lamb, future Hall of Famer Adams, Cooper Kupp. Is he a Hall of Famer? I don't think he is. Tyreek Hill, future Hall of Famer, and Justin Jefferson on path for the Hall of Fame. How about touchdowns, though? This is where Jamar Chase really excels. 29 touchdowns. And keep in mind, he missed a good amount of games in 2022, and he's still tied with Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs, only trailing Devontae Adams and Mike Evans. So I think from a resume standpoint, yeah, Jamar Chase is a bona fide superstar. Now, we're going to look at what a potential trade package could look like that Bleacher Report put together in just a moment here. Now, all this being said, still very unlikely given it's the Browns and the Bengals, but it's the NFL. Crazy stuff does happen, although this would be a whole new level of crazy. Now, before we look and unpack that trade package that could land Chase in Cleveland, I want to tell everyone watching about our friends over at GameTime. GameTime has a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. GameTime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. One thing I really like about GameTime is their all-in pricing option. There's nothing worse than spending a bunch of your time sorting through different places, looking at different prices, and then getting to the end of the road only to see $80 of fees and taxes get tacked on. With GameTime, you can just start right from the jump with all-in pricing so you know what you're paying out the door. So download the GameTime app today and create an account. And once you do that, redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So to put a cherry on top here of this wild blockbuster hypothetical trade, Bleacher Report has the Browns landing Jamar Chase in exchange for Amari Cooper, a first, and a fourth. Jamar Chase is awesome, and I might sound crazy saying no to this, but I kind of want to say no to this. I think Amari Cooper is very important to what the Browns want to do in 2024. And this is not a team that's trying to build for the future. They want to win right now. In a major shakeup in the locker room like this, you got a guy that I'm sure a lot of Browns players don't like for what he said about the team and the city. And you've got a beloved player in Amari Cooper, and you tack on a first and a fourth, which is a lot. Call me crazy. I'd probably rather have all these things for this year than one wide receiver. Now, long-term, Jamar Chase is going to be a great receiver for the next 10 years, whereas Cooper kind of approaches the end of his career. But I might be short-sighted. I want to get the most out of the 2024 Browns. And I think Amari Cooper and holding on to those picks is probably worth it. So trade might be happening with Jamar Chase, but I don't think it's going to be happening with the Browns. I just can't get over two AFC North teams making this big of a deal. The closest example we have of this is TJ Hawkinson going from the Lions to the Vikings for a couple of seconds and some thirds, which is a hefty trade package, but it didn't involve a wide receiver swap. So I just really struggle with the idea of the Browns and Bengals actually pulling off a Jamar Chase trade because the Bengals, I don't think they could ever sleep at night if Jamar Chase came back to haunt them twice a year and knowing they were the orchestrator of that trade. So going back to it, what would you do? Accept or decline? I mean, it's a fun hypothetical, so I don't think anyone should take it too seriously. But if you were in charge and you had this in front of you, what deal are you taking? Like, deal or no deal? I think I would hit no deal and probably regret it in 2 to 3 years when Jamar Chase has his 7th straight 1,000-plus yard receiving season. But for 2024, and that's what my eyes are on right now, and that's what the Browns' eyes should be on, give me Amari Cooper and keep those picks. It's also worth noting, though, that Andrew Berry does lean to the trade route to build his wide receiver room. Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, all guys he traded for. Now, I don't know if that's just a little bit of a coincidence because all those players were available when the Browns needed some help at receiver and they didn't have big price tags on them and it all just sort of happened to fall out that way, or if it's a strategy for the Browns that they want to build a receiver room with proven talent and not just hope and pray that a couple of rookies and draft picks will pan out for them. I would love to ask Andrew Berry that question. But watch for a wide receiver trade at the deadline, I think, for the Browns. I don't think they're going to be approaching or trying to pull off more receiver trades. I think Ayuk was a little bit of a special circumstance since it wasn't in the division, so it had some possibility to it. And he's younger and not cheaper, but has a longer career in front of him, so that might be tempting for Andrew Berry to reset the clock at the receiver position. But if the Browns are going to make a trade for a receiver, I would come back to the NFL trade deadline and as they reassess what their needs are at that point. In case you're wondering, here are the other Bleacher Report trade ideas for Jamar Chase. If you just want to screenshot this and send it to your Bengals friends to laugh at. Chase to the Packers for Watson, a 1st and a 3rd. Chase to the Patriots for Demario Douglas, a 1st and a 3rd. And this one might be the most outlandish of them all. Chase to the Steelers for a 1st, a 3rd, and a 4th. The Bengals would hate this. They don't even get a player in return for this year when they're trying to maximize their current roster, although without Chase on it, it feels like they're looking for the future a little bit. I would hate this. I do not want to see that happen. Jamar Chase to the Steelers, no. Send him to the NFC if he goes anywhere. Now, I will add this to put a bow on the video. I do enjoy the Bengals being poor. Like, you would think with all these receivers rushing to get paid, the Bengals would be a little bit more proactive and go, well, we should probably get Jamar Chase paid now. That way, when CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Ayuk inevitably get deals from either their current team or a team in free agency because someone's paying them that money, the Bengals can look back and go, wow, thank God we got Jamar Chase paid before those guys. Otherwise, we'd be forking over an extra $10 to $15 million. Instead, the Bengals are cash poor. They are not a franchise that has some multi-billion-dollar owner from a private business they owned before coming into the NFL. It's the Browns. It's the Bengals. And there's just not a lot of cash there for them to spend on guaranteed money. And as a result, they have players who walk across highways to practice. All right, who do you think, though, will end last in the AFC North this year? Bengals, Ravens, Browns, Steelers. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers finally have all their pixie dust magic run up on them, and the poor quarterback play catches up to them, and they go at least 8-9. All right, let's pick a card to end today's video. We have producer Reed hanging out with us today. Which card do you want to go with, Reed?
Let's go with 8 of clubs.
8 of clubs? All right. 8 of clubs. I'm going to go with the 6 of hearts. Here we go. Now, 10 of spades. We don't get 10s a lot. 10 of spades. All right, that will do it for us on today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you all tomorrow.